Salutations to folks. This is your fabulous leader, the Queen of Shade, coming at you with a special presentation. I am rolling ahead with these conversations. They're not really interviews, they're conversations with people that I look up to and support, and they support me. And I am just having a blast. One of my supporters on Facebook wrote me before I came on here, and she said to me, she said, "You're in your element, and we can see that, and that you're free, and we admire that, and we love your interviews." And the reason that I can do that is because I have such amazing people in my network. And having said that, I have someone very special I would like you to meet. This person is my friend. We've never met in person, but we're planning it. You know, COVID kind of put a damper on that, but we're planning it. But we are friends. And I truly I'm so excited to bring this person to you because I've been using their line in a lot of my interviews, and we'll talk about that in a second. So without further ado, I would like to introduce you to Mr. Joe Adorno.
Hello.
How are you today?
Good. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, you look great.
Excellent.
Too.
Thank you. You look great.
No, thank you. The line. So this is the line. Like I've said this in a lot of interviews because you said something on your platform and I actually reposted it, but it was so profound. And I'll start there. You said, you know, you have to in life pick your hard. Working a 9-to-5 is hard. Being an entrepreneur and business for yourself is hard. So you basically have
losing weight is hard.
Yeah.
Being overweight is hard.
Yeah.
Everything's hard.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it brought such a profound perspective to me. And I was just like, wow, like I had never thought of that. And I'm a hard worker, but when you put it like that, I was like, okay, like it made me feel better about the struggles and about the tribulations that come in all of our lives. So I just had to tell you that I've been using your line, but I've been crediting you. I've been crediting you.
Sometimes the word struggle has like a negative connotation, as in like, I can't do this, I'm struggling, I can't lift this, I can't. But when you say hard or difficult, it makes it seem like a challenge more than I don't know, struggle has some kind of defeated feel to it, but hard or challenge or difficult seems like, okay, I can overcome this.
Yeah, so amazing. So tell us where you're from.
Well, I'm here in Orlando, Florida.
Yep.
But originally I was born right outside the city of Philadelphia.
Yep.
And that's where I was born and raised. I love it, go Chester County. So love it. But then I went to college in Tampa and just kind of stayed in Florida and got my master's here in Florida and started a company and family. So
get this, you went for college, you went all the way from Philadelphia.
I was either going all the way west or all the way south. I remember my mom straight up told me, because I'm the youngest in my generation, and she was like, "I'm not paying for anything outside of Pennsylvania." And I was like, "Well, I'm not applying for anything in Pennsylvania." So I only applied to 3 colleges, 1 in California and 2 in Florida. And I was like, "I'm out."
So if she wasn't paying for it, how'd you do it?
Some scholarships.
Yes.
She didn't even come to visit me until second semester junior year.
Oh, she was mad at you.
Okay.
She was mad at you. Yeah, she was mad at you. She was giving you tough love because she didn't want her baby going so far away.
Something like that. I'm not the favorite, so it doesn't matter.
You know, you're still a baby though. How like I want to talk about that for a second, because I remember I called myself going as far as I could, and it was still in Pennsylvania because I wanted the in-state break.
Okay.
You know, so I went to Clarendon University from Philadelphia. That was 7 hours, you know, almost over there by Pittsburgh. And I had a good time. I could have went further. Yeah. I didn't have to go to that school, but I don't regret it. I don't regret it. So
I know that I just wanted to, not that I felt trapped.
Okay.
You know, I love how I grew up, but I felt like there was just something bigger and more, and I wanted to get out and I felt I outgrew the area I was in, and I wanted to just experience something bigger. And I'm so glad I did. I you know, have nieces and nephews and cousins, and a lot of times they talk to me and they're like, you know, what should I do? Where should I? And my advice always is, while you're young, travel, go see the world, you can't go wrong with investing in traveling. And even if I have a nephew who's staying in state for college, and when we talked about it, he went to visit a college in California. And I don't know, I'm a big believer in, if you moved out of your hometown and started a new life, you've already made it as far as I'm concerned.
Right, right, right. So tell everybody what your degrees are in.
So I have a bachelor's in psychology and I have a master's in social work.
Yes.
And I love helping. I guess this comes from my mom.
Yeah.
She was a school teacher in Philadelphia, and then sometimes on the weekend she would bring kids home to spend the weekend. And it not in a foster way, but
Right.
it felt like, well, who are these kids and why are they playing with my toys? And it was, and it got into that habit of, give back, always give back, and do. And my parents didn't come from a lot, but they worked as hard as they can. And I came from middle-class working families, like both my parents, 9 to 5. So we were comfortable, but just average. So I don't know, there's something in me that just, what do you need? How can I help?
You know what? I was waiting because I'm like, please don't give it away. Please don't give it away. Please don't give it away. Oh. My next question, but you didn't give it away. So
okay.
You're a pro at this. You know. Yeah, you're a pro at this. Yeah. So here's the question, because you set it up. So in having that experience and having her bring children home and seeing how she helped them and how she introduced them to a family life and, kind of gave them a little more to cling to. You are an entrepreneur and you do something very unique in Florida. Tell us what you do.
So I own a small social service agency working with children in child welfare. And for those of you who don't know child welfare, that is foster care.
Yes.
And it is, I don't know, I started my social work career, I originally started working with the homeless and doing outreach, and it was different. And it just didn't feel right to me. And then I moved to, I interviewed for a Department of Juvenile Justice program. And that seemed way more fun. I really enjoyed working with teenagers with criminal backgrounds. I just felt like there was a lot of kids that made dumb decisions, and they're good kids. Let's just move forward from it. And then I got a job working here in Florida. It's called DCF, the Department of Children and Families. And that was probably the most intense case management I've ever done in my life. Not only are you answering to your supervisor and on top of the case, but then there's like directors of the county, there's attorneys, there's judges. So in court every day, it was tough. But then I just decided I really like working with the youth population, and I quit and I started my own company.
You know what's so crazy? I have a neighbor. Her name is Carolyn. Shout out to you, Carolyn, because she watches. But what she does is she works here for kind of the same thing. I think it's DHS. Yes, DHS. And she actually wants to do what you did. Starting her own.
Man, there is no handbook of, I mean, they could tell you, yes, start your own company, you have to but for your own unique business, it's, I don't know many people who are going to give you all the keys to the kingdom. Nope. They'll give you little pieces, and then it's up to you to figure it out. And luckily I had a lot of great people. I ended up, so Florida's child welfare is overseen by the state, but not run by the state. It's privatized. So large agencies contract for the state to run certain counties. So then myself, as like a mentoring agency, I contract with those agencies, not the state directly. Which is nice because you kind of branch around and contract with different areas in the state rather than the whole state and all the counties. So I originally started in 2008 as a nonprofit. And I will say my biggest kryptonite is I don't know how to ask for money. And maybe that's part of my pride of just like, show me the work, let me know how much it is, and I'll do it. But like, hey, can I have $1? No, I will starve. I don't know.
I can't believe you. You're pulling my card.
So I failed, but it's okay. It's because in my world there's like no such thing as failure. So I tried in 2012, but it was a for-profit. I said, all right, I'm going to do the work. You guys just pay me for it. And it's been like that ever since. Yeah.
That's what
I
happened to me. I'm so crazy. This is so crazy. I had an LLC, but it was for profit. But I didn't know how to ask my following. I gave Instagram 5 summers, 5 winters, 5 springs, 5 falls.
You did it better than me.
Yeah, churning out. And I didn't make a single dime, Joe. I didn't make a single dime. And this is so crazy. I'm going to get very candid because I want people to understand that this industry that I'm in also is smoke and mirrors, like a lot of artists have said. I was speaking to someone who could get me a slot on Good Morning America. And
Wow.
it wasn't etched, but she had so many connections that she could make it happen. Like, wow. And that was the thing. Wow. She just wanted $18,000.
Well, okay, so I have a few friends, I've been doing this for 10 years. I have a few friends that are significantly wealthy. I mean, not me, child. I'm middle class.
I just look like this.
I think the average person can relate to like a tier above or a tier below, but I have a friend, he has like a personal driver and his Bentley and like champagne glasses in the car. I was like, what the hell? No, I take my shoes off to get in. So, but the same thing. He had an insane amount of connections, took a shine to me and what I do. And super nice guy. He's like, I own about 75 different companies, like his names are on them. And he's like, I work like 3 hours a day. And I was like, okay, your goals, very nice guy too.
Yeah.
But same thing. He was like, well, do you need a type of funding? Do you need to secure a bigger contract? And like, he started calling one of Florida's representatives and had him on the phone. And he's like, okay, I could set up a meeting, but nothing is for free.
Right.
And I just had this long conversation with my attorney and I was like, wow, and it comes down to capital. If you can make things happen, if you have capital and resources.
Yeah. And that was the crazy thing because I felt like a failure because my grandmother worked 40 years to give me the money that she had.
Oh.
And during COVID, I had, and thank God it wasn't a real bankruptcy. It was a dissolution. So I had to disillusion my company. See, I can talk to you, entrepreneur to entrepreneur.
Yeah, sure.
So I had to disillusion my company, and I was suicidal, Joe. And that whole time, yes, because I said this in other interviews too. For a long time, mental illness had me by the balls. Yeah, I still have them by the balls. And it took me, Joe, it took me so long to get a handle on it. And then to finally feel like I had something, because I was medically withdrawn from college. I had to leave because of the illness. And my family didn't know what bipolar disorder was. They didn't know what even post-traumatic stress or acute anxiety disorders were. I had 3. So they didn't know. So it was let's make sure you have therapy. Let's make sure you're on medication. And in 2 years, you can go back to school. No, I struggled and it was just very hard. So when the Queen of Shade presented herself to me, I grabbed her because it was the first thing that I felt like I had succeeded at. It was the first thing that to me, now mind you, everyone has value, everyone has worth. You don't have to do a shitload of things to have value. As a human being on this planet being born, you have value. I just didn't believe that about myself. So it meant everything to me. And I had to disillusion that company because my grandmother could no longer foot the bill. She could no longer foot the bill. She had been carrying me and taking care of me. Now, mind you, this is my adult life. So let's not mention that I lived with her as a child, but for 14 years, she was taking care of me and my grandmother she has expensive taste. So I wasn't wearing like Walmart slippers. I have them because I bought them. I don't mind. I don't mind. But she was buying Nike and Adidas and all these things. So it wasn't just her care. She was furnishing me with everything. So then she just said to me one day, she was like, I hate to do this to you, but I can't do this anymore. And I'm like, what the hell am I supposed to do? There's no one else. And that was a bone of contention in our relationship for many months. We argued like cats and dogs. We fought because I'm like, if you see the value, you went to, like, I was with her. I'm like, you went to your bank. I can talk, even though it's being recorded, I can say this because it happened. You went to your bank. I sat with you and you withdrew $90,000. You went into your IRA and you handed me a $90,000 check. And in 5 years, it was nothing. I did my business plan after the fact. Sometimes you got to start the business and then do the business plan.
Right.
I started the business, then did the business plan, and the business plan said, oh, you're in music, you're in this. It takes $1 million to run your company a year. I didn't have a tenth of that. Not even 100, almost $100,000. And I put out 4 albums. Literally people helped me. But when she said she couldn't do that anymore, I'll never forget. I felt so devastated. I was suicidal. I cried. I'm like, I came this far, I can't just give up. And the whole time I'm having these feelings, I'm talking to my therapist and working. I produced my best content, all those videos. I could say this was when I was at my lowest and nobody would believe it because the videos were pristine. They came out so powerfully. And the crazy thing was, like you said, I had a record executive a long time ago when I was going to sign to a little known label. They're big, but I decided to walk away from that because ownership meant more to me. Right. But he said to me, don't lean on the label, make friends. Your friends will help you get to where you need to be in your life. And the crazy thing was, one of my friends, actually a few of my friends, pulled together and booked mentor services with me for an entire year.
Wow.
Didn't even use them. They're like, bitch, this is for fun. I was able to start a new LLC. I was able to move forward. My budget is significantly lower than it was before. But I said all that to say this: I had already done the work. I had already bought the wigs. I'd already bought the dresses. So all the things that I had to buy the first time around, I don't have to buy. I have it all. You see?
Right.
It balanced out.
Wow. If I can say,
yes.
Thank you for sharing. That's amazing. I also think I work so much with kids that I every time somebody will say, this happened, but like parents, oh, my child just came out to me as non-binary, just like how your grandmother set a boundary with you. Yeah. I always say, isn't that a beautiful thing that somebody felt comfortable enough to tell you how they feel about something, their truth, and to express vulnerability to you. And I'm sorry that you and your grandmother had some rocky times.
We're good now.
Yeah, I mean, but time does heal, right?
Yes.
And
conversation, Joe, and talking, conversation. You got to talk about it.
Sure. Oh my gosh. I read this book, I think it's called Soulmate by Lauren Mackler. And she said, like, the 2 biggest things that she feels lacking in the population is proper coping skills and proper communication. Yep. And those 2 are the hardest to teach. And that's why they're the hardest for people to acquire and successfully teach to the next generation. And I 100% agree with that.
Yeah. That's amazing. Wow. So keep going, please do. There's more. You have more. You're pouring into me now. Saying,
like, my company is a little unique. I remember when I went to start, somebody was like, go to the bank and get a loan. And I was like, for what? And their response was like, well, don't you want a center? And I was like, of course. And for whatever reason, that didn't make sense to me at the moment. I said, well, I don't want to get into debt. I want to be in a positive. But again, my company is unique. It's not like I want to open up a restaurant and I have to pay for the space and the equipment ahead of time. It was literally just me. So my business model was, we get the referrals from the child welfare case management. And then I go pick up the kid, I take them out to the community for 2 hours, we hang out, we teach skills, and then I bring them back home. And so to me, I was the only, I was my only expense.
Don't say it. Okay.
What happened?
Don't say about the Florida. I'm gonna get there. Don't say about, okay. So keep going. It was your expense. Keep going, but don't say this. You're gonna take my next question. So
it was just me. So, there wasn't a lot of overhead, which was nice. So the way that my contracts work is we do a month of service. On the first of the new month, I bill, and then they pay me 30 days later. So the moment I got my contract, I didn't even get a paycheck until 60 days later, working for myself. And so that, I will say, that was a tough one where I did rely on some friends and say, I just need a little help to, like, for gas and for food. But then once I got paid, so I'm always 60 days behind or 30 days behind typically in what I do, but I keep payroll ahead.
You know what's so funny? I'm glad that you said that, because it's the same in the, like, in the industry. Models are net 90 sometimes. They don't get
Yeah.
it until 90 days,
Some
and you gotta
insurance
pay.
companies are like that.
Yeah, you
Yeah.
gotta pay all of these bills. I didn't even expect to open up like that, but we're friends. So we're learning about each other, and they're just recording, but it's just recording. But I want to stick with this. I love something, and I held on to it and put a pin in it when you said it. Children make bad decisions. Did you, like, poor decisions? Do you feel, or have you seen that children make poor decisions based on their stressors? Because when I
Oh,
was growing
everybody
up,
does.
but I'll tell you why I'm saying this, and then what happened was, I had a lot of trauma growing up. I didn't have my mother or my father. My grandmother helped me. My uncles and aunts helped raise me. We were passed around the family. But what happened was, I didn't soar. Like, I was good in school, but I didn't soar in school the way that I could have, because my home life was hell. My home life was hell. So I was carrying so much that impeded my moving forward. Do you see that in your children? Because that's the
Well,
thing. Yeah, go ahead, say
yes.
that.
So two things on that. One's a little personal, and I'm sure we'll get to this at some point, but I have some sons. And
Don't say it,
my,
don't say it, don't say it, don't say it, don't say it. Wait. You have some
but
sons. Go ahead.
I was told by a 15-year-old,
Ah,
when you don't have a place to sleep tonight, that's the only thing you can focus on. That's the only thing on your mind. And, people would sit there and foster it. Well, why don't you go get a job then? Again, if you don't know where you're sleeping tonight, that is the only thing you can focus on. So eventually, I would love to go back to school for a doctorate in social work, and I'd like to focus specifically with child welfare. But studies have shown, like with brain scans, like your brain stem is the first to develop, and that usually is your survival stuff: food, shelter. I love Maslow's hierarchy of needs, but
yes,
that's your
I do
first to develop.
too. I do
Your
too.
final one is the frontal lobe, and that's where judgment is. So I guess it starts and then builds, and that doesn't happen until like your 20s. I'm 21, so like mine's still developing.
Yes. I'm
But
22.
studies have shown that kids who experience significant trauma in their life, especially kids in foster care and have been removed multiple times, have very large brain stems compared to the rest of the population their own age, which means their mind has developed to be in survival mode constantly. So
Mhm.
that could be why school didn't matter at that moment, because your immediate issue was, when I get home, this is what's happening. There may not be dinner, there may be fighting, there may be whatever it is. So when they're like, well, why didn't you why didn't you do the school report? That was the last thing on my plate, because my immediate need, food or shelter, was the priority.
Yeah.
I was afraid to go home, like that's how some kids say. So I stayed at school, and it wasn't to do work, it was to just feel safe.
Yeah.
So there's so much out there. Yes. So yes, with trauma, with children, absolutely, it affects your day to day. And depending on your level of stress, it can affect your decisions drastically.
Yeah. So you didn't do it. I was like, don't do it.
I,
So there is something very unique in your life. You have sons. Please tell us about your sons, and about Florida, and about why I'm asking you to tell me, because it's so significant. It has never happened before. You are the first. So please tell us. Please now tell us.
so in the state of Florida, it was illegal for homosexuals to adopt kids out
Mm.
of foster care or be foster parents. Now, there were some foster parents that were like, maybe they were gay, maybe they weren't, but the application straight up asked if you were a homosexual. And if you checked yes, you were denied. And I do not need to deny who I am for anybody, anything. Like, I don't. Like, I've learned enough that I'm just going to be me for as long as I'm going to be me. So in 2010, there was a gay couple in Miami that were taking on this little child, and it deemed that that was the best possible placement for this child, based on what this child experienced and based on what they've done with them. And so it became in the appellate courts to overturn that gays can adopt. So they were the first couple. And then right after them, because that set precedent, I went to adopt my first son, and I was told, no, you can't. And I was like, nope. Or Miami, the appellate court said you could. And they were like, well, then that was just the city ordinance. And I was like, then transfer this case. Well, and I've always been like combative. So I was like, well, then transfer this case to Miami and I'll drive back and forth for the court hearings. You can transfer jurisdiction. And they're like, no, we can't do that. Oh, then we have something to talk about. At the time, I'm not going to mention names, but at the time, my vice president pulled me into my office and said, I don't support gays adopting. I'm not going to support this. And oh my, it wasn't. And then it was a year-long battle of negativity. And I was so taken back because I worked for the department and I was like, my job is to find permanency, safety for these kids. And I think I found it. And they kept the case in my name. So I could not adopt. I could not work on an adoption while the case was still in my name for myself. And then when they transferred it within the agency. So then it still couldn't happen because of a conflict of interest. So then I kept fighting again, and then they transferred it to another agency. And then I guess a director got involved and was like, stop it. Oh my gosh. So like my attorney who like represents my company as well was like, I'm going to fight for this. The guardian ad litem attorney witnessed our interaction, was like, I'm going to fight for this too. I ended up having to hire a private attorney to finalize it myself. I talk about a lot. UCF invites me to the University of Central Florida to give like speeches about stuff in the social work department and fighting. And it was a year-long battle. And I remember threatening, like, if it hits a year, I'm going to sue. And I have a year's worth of data to back this up. You're purposely keeping this child in foster care, which is a federal violation. But I won. And then in 2011, I was the first single gay man in the state of Florida to adopt a child. And actually, he still lives with me today. So he's playing his video games.
Wow.
And I also adopted teenagers, which is teenage males, minority males, which are the least to be adopted demographically.
So you went through that for the first son.
Yes.
3 sons.
I have 3. Oh yeah. And so so again, I have like a whole hour-long speech that I give this at UCF like every year, every semester about my process. But yeah, when I remember going for my second and my third, and my third, I was like, this is the timeline. We're not deviating from this. And I remember them saying like, we don't know if I want this done in 90 days, start to finish. And they were like, even if all the stars align, it won't be able to happen. No, it happened. It 100% happened. And I also would like to give a shout out to like the judge. The judge was Judge Daniel Dawson of Osceola County. He was the one who witnessed us, and for a year was like, so where's the home study then? Why? And I'm like, no one's done one. And he's like, why not? And I remember him saying, I have talked with this boy privately in the chambers, and the boy has said, yes, he wants to be adopted. He is a teenager. He's old enough to have his opinion. Why isn't this happening? I mean, so it was really cool to just see the judge fight for a minority, a homosexual minority, for the adoption of another minority. He's straight, but like another minority. It was, I don't know. I think sometimes there's a lot of negativity with racism, but it was just really nice to see somebody looking at it from a stance of, this is what the law says, and who cares everyone's personal opinion? We're going to rule with what the law says.
Do you know, like I got emotional as you were talking because you're a hero.
So look, I'm getting good. So this is my son, Abdel. I tattooed his name. And then my middle son, Felix. And then my youngest, no, wait, that's Abdel. And my youngest, Michael. And I remember Abdel for a while. He's my oldest. When I was his case manager, he used to call me Mr. Joe. And he'd be like, hey, Mr. Joe, how's it going? And when my second son, after I adopted him, he stopped calling me Mr. Joe. But he didn't call me Dad because it wasn't ready. And I'm a firm believer, you cannot claim the identity of a new family until one has already taken its place. Because you're not going to let go of what you have unless something has already taken over. And it wasn't until my second son, when he started like doing weekend visits with us and hanging out, when I think it was a Saturday morning, I woke up and I was going to make breakfast, and he came into the kitchen. He was like, I want to know how to cook. I don't know how to make eggs. I want to make some pancakes. And so he's there, and I just see like my first son, like looking over the couch, looking at us. And then that's the first time he called me dad. He's like, Dad, can I help? Can we have some eggs? And I like almost cried a little bit because he felt threatened. And that's when it felt appropriate for him to say, that's my dad. So I've watched that with all three of them go from that transition from like Mr. Joe to nothing to dad. You know, I was Mr. Joe, then, hey, where are we going today? To then dad.
I asked you to come on. I asked you to come on and speak because as a child that started in the projects, my mother was on drugs for 25 years of my life.
That's our monster.
25 years. My father, mental illness, collecting a check, living in the basement of his mother's house. So to not know them and to try so hard to free myself and then to get hit with mental illness from both of them because it's hereditary.
Yeah.
When all I wanted to do was just rid myself of my past. And I ended up today using my past. When I give my videos, the experience and all that I'm speaking about and all that I have learned is because someone became a hero to me. And that was my grandmother.
That's awesome.
You know? And even when we went through that, one day I walked downstairs. She looked at me, I looked at her. I said, we need to talk this out. And we talked it out. And the crazy thing is, she's still to this day. I have friends, I have clients. She's still like, today, this morning, she woke me up like, you're getting dressed every day. You can't possibly have enough makeup. Go get makeup. Let's go. And I went, and she's driving me from Walmart because I use like Maybelline and L'Oreal. Shout out to them. It's good products. They actually have something that fits my skin complexion. You know, they have something that fits my skin complexion. So L'Oreal, Maybelline, I'm that girl. But like, just to not have had to worry. I can't even imagine how your three sons feel knowing that every day, whether they come home from school, whether they're in school, whether they're, traveling, they have stability to come to.
Right.
Stability. Right. So many kids, because I have an uncle who lives in California. And this is his story, but I've heard through my grandmother and different things like that. He has sons. Yeah, he has sons. And it's a lot to be able to give a child safety. And that's not a light position. I really commend you and thank you for that, because there was many talks of me and my three siblings going into foster care. I begged my grandmother not to put us into foster care. And she said, I can't do that because I don't want them to split you up. I want you guys to know.
Yeah, that's a reality.
Each other, yeah. And the thing was, she knew I was gay. So she was like, I am not about to put you in foster care in the city. Are you crazy? And I remember, and this is the craziest thing, Joe, I remember being sent outside and the windows being open. And I remember the shouting matches she would have with my uncles and aunts, because they would say, it's too much. You're one person. You're a teacher. You're not a doctor. You're not a lawyer. You're not, you're a teacher. And she would say, it's because I am a teacher. It's because I see kids in my classroom. It's because I have to go above and beyond for kids in my classroom, feed them, bring in cots for them to sleep on because they've been running drugs all night for older people. You see? So she was like, I am not about to do this to my own. We will find a way. And she did. And, so it's sad because my brothers and sisters, they blame her for things, but she was one person. And in all actuality, the damage happened not with her. we were left with my uncles and aunts. That's where the damage happened, because she was the one leaving the house at dark in the morning and then coming home dark in the
At
evening
dark.
because she was the provider. She had to
Yeah.
work. I remember the hardest year of my teenage life was when I was 14, and my aunt caused a car accident with my grandmother. She was actually, my grandmother asked her to slow down because it started to rain. I took driver's ed. We know that the roads are the most dangerous when it initially starts to rain, because all the oil and everything comes to the surface before the actual real rain starts to come down and cleanse the ground. And she asked my aunt was picking her up from work. She asked my aunt, please slow down. And my aunt gave her this, I know what I'm doing. I know how to drive. Don't tell me how to drive. The car starts spinning. They hit a tree before the tree stopped them from going into the Schuylkill River.
Ooh.
My aunt walked away without a scratch. My grandmother broke her leg in 3 places and had to take 2 years off from teaching. That was the hardest time of my life. She wasn't even in the house with us. Hardest time of my life.
I'm sorry.
But get this, she came through it. I'm sharing this experience because I'm talking to someone that deals with children. This story that I'm telling you, though it's mine, it is not as bad as it could be. And you know that. You know what these children are coming from. And it is not a joke. And I commend you for because you're not only a father now, you're still advocating for all of those children. And I know that can't be easy. And I know that's got to be expensive. You are still doing it. There is nobody to do that. And that's the thing. So many kids just wish. I remember even kids, like when you find out that they're in foster care, they're begging for stability. You see it in their entire, like even boys, they're angry, and people are like, oh, and the system goes, oh, well, they're violent. Well, look at what they came from.
Right. Well, and sometimes these kids are treated like criminals because, they're going to a foster home and they're like, hey, can I go out and play? And the foster parent's like, no, come home after work, after school. And they're like, okay. And the reality is, and I've said this to a lot of kids, the reality is they probably could, but the foster parents may not know how to properly say, actually, we're learning to trust each other. So how about if you come home on time the next 3 days in a row, then I will let you go out and play. Wow. And the kids, and in my, I swear to you, I feel like that's really what's saying. The kid's like, can I do something normal? And the foster parents, instead of explaining because I 100% believe that's what their mindset is. I don't really know you yet, so we have to learn to trust each other. Right. But it's hard to effectively say that. Mm-hmm. But I do that with some kids. As I told you the other day when we talked on the phone, I had a couple kids here because they can't find pit placement. And I have a rule in my house: if you don't help cook, you don't eat. So when we will cook together. Yes. And if that's what it is. Even if it's as simple as chopping up some vegetables. So we made a shrimp Alfredo with Alfredo sauce from scratch with this kid. But the one boy was like, can I ride the bike around the block? And he had been at my house a few times. And I was like, sure. And I remember his nurse came by to, give him his medication. And she was like, you trust him? And I'm like, I mean, the most he's going to, if he runs away, he runs away. Like, I can't control everything that he does. But this boy now is feeling normal and riding his bike around the neighborhood and came back and threw his bike on the front yard. And I was like, okay, calm down, like put it away properly. But I do believe it's like trust is like a rope. You have to give a little for people. And if you're the one holding the rope, you have to learn to let go to give it to people. That's why I ask kids all the time, especially when they come in. Like I had 2 kids last week that had ankle monitors on. And
these kids are fun.
I was like, we could go to Michael's and bedazzle that. No kid has said yes yet. Right. but we have wrapped that thing up in like a Ziploc bag with duct tape, and they've swam in the pool because they just want to feel normal.
Normal.
I ask them all the time. I said, just help me understand how today's going to go. Are you a bad kid that likes making bad decisions, or are you a good kid that has made a few dumb decisions? And probably 99% of the kids will say, I'm a good kid, I've made dumb decisions. So when they start acting up, like I had a kid who kind of had a little bit of a meltdown, and I was like, all right, I'm not going to deal with this behavior. So I'm gonna let you be for a moment. But when I came back to him and I was like, hey, can I sit and talk with you? And he's like, I guess. I said, all right. I said, I get that you're upset and you have every right to feel however you feel. I appreciate that you didn't curse. I appreciate that you didn't hit anything. I appreciate you didn't destroy stuff. Your behavior, even though you're angry, was still very appropriate. And that's awesome. And I feel once I say that, they're ready to listen to whatever I have to say. And we have it, and we were good, and we ended up hugging it out. And he was like, "I don't apologize for nothing." I was like, "Well, I need an apology." And then it took him a couple breaths, and he was like, "I'm sorry, we're good." And then we move on. But I don't know. I like working with the kids. They make sense to me.
Yes, I was going to say that. Like, you have an incredible amount of patience.
And I don't want them, but I have them.
Right. You have an
Something I paid
incredible
for.
amount, an insanely incredible amount of patience, because kids going through things are very hard nuts to crack. Very hard. And your interactions, it's kind of like what I do too. I've done it so much that I've got to be able to get to you in 60 seconds.
Yeah.
60 seconds. That's all I have. And usually I have about 15 before you decide that you are not going to watch this. That's you know how to, and that's the thing. Like, as I'm sitting here, I'm a shaman, so I'm seeing things. Like, I'm seeing you work and I'm seeing you insert supports. Like, as you're working with each kid, like, I've got to this, and I got to support this side and this emotion, and I've got to counter this. Like, I can see that in the realm of the spirit. That's a lot of work. You're a hero. That's a lot of work.
Well, shout out to anybody who's still listening and who we kept the attention for longer than 60 seconds.
Right.
Shout out to you.
Right. No, they're watching all of them. Joe, they're watching every single
episode. Is this live?
No, it's recording. It's pre-recorded.
Oh, okay.
But they're watching every single one.
Well, Joe. Shout out everybody. Thank you.
Right. They're because the story is so compelling. So compelling.
I think with human nature, you can look at, everyone wants validation.
Yeah.
Why does somebody feel confident when they put that outfit on? They look in the mirror and that's their own validation. Okay, I look good, I feel good. And then if somebody gives them a compliment, hey, you look nice. To me, I feel you should always accept a compliment in the spirit in which it was given. I hate it though when people are like, I know, I mean, I get it. We're joking with friends and stuff, but if a stranger comes up to you and says, hey, I think you look nice, and the response is duh, or yeah, I don't know, it's weird to me. Like, just thank you. Yeah. You just take the humility and say thank you. But I think we all want validation. Yeah. And I also think that's why social media has become so popular, because it's immediate validation. You see the likes and the comments and the hearts, and it's validating your own existence. Mm-hmm. And one of my arguments, like I would have with my ex all the time, is not an argument, but one of the things that we would discuss a lot, I'm like, oh, I feel like this happened. He's like, no, you don't. I was like, well, you can't tell me how to feel. Mm-hmm. Just like I won't tell you how to feel. If he's like, I'm upset about something, I might not agree with your reason for it, but okay, you're upset. All right, how can we get past this? Because your feelings are still valid. They may come from a wrong place. You may have misheard something and you made an opinion based on something you misheard, but we can figure it out. But your feelings are still your own. So I also think with kids and adults, the best thing is to verify, I hear you, I see you, this is how you're feeling, correct me if I'm wrong. It's that validation.
Yeah, you know what? I have a nephew, because I had the extreme pleasure to help raise two of my nephews. Yeah. And I mean, they were little. My one nephew was about 7 or 8 when he came here, and he's 19 now. He lives in California with my uncle. Cool. So it's just, and the other one, he's 20 now, and he's here, and he's brought his girlfriend, and they're an interracial couple, and
good for them.
They sleep every night, and you know Wawa. So they sleep every day, and then they go to work at Wawa every night, and together they work there Wawa. Together. But, I said that to say, like, the amount of patience, but all that I had to pour in. Like, because when the one came here, he was a teenager. And my thing was, me as a child, I know what it's like to be abused. So I never wanted to put my hands on them or anything. If I couldn't talk to you, then we weren't talking. So he would have these outbursts because where he came from, his parents were very abusive and very mean and said a lot of things to him. And when he was finally rid of them, he didn't know how to let parenting in. He did not know how to let authority in. And my thing was, I'm not trying to lord over you. I don't have to lord over you. I'm your uncle. You don't even call, like I used to do that. Like, you don't have to call me this or that. Just listen, hear me, and I will hear you. And get this, I'm not going to lie. We had many days where he would just start an outburst of violence and breaking things. And I would run to him and grab him around his midsection torso and just hold him there. Now, mind you, this kid was a football player. So he was a big kid. He slimmed down now, but like myself, I work out, but I'm very strong because I do a lot of core exercises. So I would pull him to me. He couldn't move. And that would be the thing. So he would be tussling and I'd never throw a punch. And what I realized is he never did either. And
wow.
Yeah.
So and that took a lot of trust.
Yes. And get this, it was new. He didn't know if he could trust me. And literally I would tussle with him and literally take him down to the floor and hold him like I was holding someone that fell, and literally just hold him. And we did that many times. And it's so crazy because he comes to me now and he says to me, he's like, Uncle BJ, I get it now. I understand and I thank you. And every time, I find that kids are because I was that way too. I was so happy and thankful for my grandmother that everything she said to me, I would be saying in another conversation, say, well, my grandmother says this, or my grandmother says that. And I find that he does that too. Well, my Uncle BJ says this, or my Uncle BJ says that. And it's just so amazing what our relationship has become, because I'm not trying to lord over him. He had it already. And I mean, he started therapy on his own because, at 14, they're old enough to say, I want to go to therapy. We can set it up, but they can refuse it. So at 15, he started. And I mean, and my other baby, he said to me, he said, I never thought that I would learn how to be a man from a gay man. With this this whole trans illusion, he was like, you taught me to be a man. And that was, I cried because and I didn't cry in front of him. I went to my room and I just was like, because that's the biggest compliment. They always try to tell us gays we're not real men, but you are a real man.
Masculinity is different than to me what I think like a man represents. I've had some guys being like, your hair is dyed. I don't think that's, I don't find that to be manly. Oh yeah, I own my own company. I run my home. I pay my bills on time. I can fix minor stuff in my car. There's a big difference between a man and masculinity. Yeah, come at me.
And you're like, I have three straight sons. What are you talking about?
And I could do that with my hair colored.
Right. And I can do all of that with my hair colored.
Yeah.
It's the same way with me. I look at men and it's so crazy because even my neighbors, all of my neighbors, I have all these fine men that live around me. They're fine. And there's some of them married, they have children, but they'll see me working. And I remember the one, I came out because they never see me outside. Like for 5.5 years, I was chained to my desk. I only went out to the doctors and to the grocery store. I was chained to my desk working. So when he would see me, he'd be like, I know you're making magic. I know you're doing this. I know you're doing that. We're watching you. They all support me. And my grandmother said it. Like my grandmother said it because I was like, I'm getting out there and, we got to move because I need more protection. And she said to me, she was like, you think these men around you are going to let anybody come to your house and do
That's anything? Awesome.
Yeah. So
I get asked all the time, did your sons ever care that you were gay?
No.
And I never. And I It's funny. My response a lot is, I have never met a single child in foster care
Who
that cared
cared?
that I was gay. And I firmly believe hate is taught. And
Yeah.
I don't think a lot of these kids have been anywhere long enough to be taught hate,
Mhm.
because they might meet me whatever judgment, but I think after a second or third time, because I'm pretty strict. I mean, the moment I meet a kid for the first time, I'm like, we have 3 rules. We're going to get through this together.
Yeah.
And I go through my spiel. I mean, I draw a line in the sand very clearly. I'm not afraid to communicate that. I've had many a kid. Oh my God! This over the week, the 2 boys asked if I could adopt them. I had a boy write me a letter about why I should adopt him and how he would do his homework every night and he would take his medicine. And but it's never mattered to them. I think a lot of these kids just want to be loved. They don't give a damn who it comes from, as long as someone loves them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know what I love is that, even because you can't adopt them all,
Yeah.
That was Josephine Baker's problem. Her rainbow tribe. That was her problem. She didn't know how to stop adopting children. She didn't want any child to hurt. And it was like, you gotta draw the line. And I find that growing up with them being with you, their memories, Christmas, Thanksgiving, things that they for many years did not have, like you will never, they will never be able to replace that you're giving them.
No. And I remember because obviously they were teenagers, I remember saying to them, I'm not trying to take your family away from you. I'm trying to add to your family. So
Right.
like my youngest, I knew his brothers, but I knew them as I met them as I was going through the adoption process. And it was very important for me to find them and to
Right.
ask for their blessing, and for him to hear it. And I mean, he'll go, and my son, like my youngest son, he's in college now. So like he'll go hang out with them on the weekends because they live here locally, and it's beautiful. I mean, I remember their first Thanksgiving, and they were like, we had not had Thanksgiving together in over 11 years, and it was here at this house. And uh, all their last names are hyphenated with my last name. Like everybody has Adorno, and well, that was very clear about that. I'm like, one of 2 things are happening: you're either taking it or hyphenating it, but that name's getting there. And it's funny, I said, but at some point in the future, you will know more Adorno than your original last name. And all of them have come to me privately and was like, I wish I didn't have to hyphenate it. And I was like, but that was the choice made at the time. But now, after being in this family for so long, you're a part of it, and it's great. And I was like, you're tattooed, like you're not going anywhere. It's cool.
Wow. Wow. Like, Joe, you're like an onion. You have so many beautiful layers.
Yeah. I'm
You have
still a big goofball. Like
you have so
my
many
TikTok is
beautiful.
silly.
You have so yeah, right. We're all trying to do stuff on TikTok. I'm starting to do crazy skits on there too. It's just,
It's hilarious.
it is.
Holy crap. I get into that, like that. I don't even, it's like the Bermuda Triangle. You like turn it
Uh-huh.
on and it's daylight, and then you're like, why is it dark now? It's ridiculous. Or like your phone shuts off and I'm like, oh, is that 70%? So
Wow.
God, it's so addicting.
You know what? I just want to say thank you for taking this opportunity, because I had a lot of therapy surrounding my life, but it is a breath of fresh air to hear it from the other side. Someone who actually wants kids. Like I get mad at my community sometimes, our community, we're all minorities. And it's like, you're out here having these babies and then you don't want them. You don't want to raise them. You don't want to, and it's like, you got people that have longed to have children. You have couples where a beautiful
Yeah.
woman and a beautiful man is crying because they're trying to have a baby.
Yeah.
And you just out here spreading your legs to everything. Like what I find and what I'm trying to say is the responsibility of parenthood, of procreating is so large. Like there's a large responsibility there. You owe that child because they didn't have themselves. You had them. And
Right.
people don't
Right.
understand that. They're like, oh, well, my kids are an addition to me. No, 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 sweetheart. Your kids are everything. Your kids should be everything because you had them. They didn't have you. So it's like, I could go on about that forever, but I love when I see someone who actually wanted kids. And I got to see that a lot growing up too, because being in the suburbs, I was, my mother was 17 when she had me. My father was 28. Their crime, not mine. But I was around kids whose parents tried for them, made for them, enjoyed the process of creating them. And those were my
Yeah.
friends. And I went to their houses and I was ingratiated into the family. I had so many mothers, I had so many fathers. And that, excuse me, that shaped me into being who I am. I got the love. And it also taught me to go anywhere. Like I went outside my family for the love. I went outside my family, but I found it so that I didn't need it from the whole world, if you understand what I'm saying. Like I tell,
Right.
because my nephew, he's an artist too. He wants to do music and he's very gifted, but I tell him, you have abandonment issues, baby. You have love issues. You want more love. You've got to get that together before you go out there and expect the whole world to love you or want the whole world to love you. I tell him, you don't need the whole world to love you. You don't. You want something more core. You want something more nuclear. And it's so amazing to see that he loves me. He
It's
loves me.
amazing.
He loves me with his whole heart. And it's
That's
just
amazing.
beautiful. Yeah, it's beautiful.
Yeah, I would just, and abandonment issues would be, are awful just in general in the
Yeah,
relationship world. The moment someone says, I don't want to be with you, it could
yeah,
bring up some memories. Or in the entertainment world, if you're going to auditions and they're
yeah,
like, sorry, you're just not the right fit,
yeah.
it keeps striking up that abandonment. And I don't know. I don't, there's no simple solution how to get past that.
Hmm.
Sometimes you just have to understand your worth and know that sometimes people may not see it at that moment,
Hmm.
but keep going. If I could give any advice to anyone with a business, consistency is key.
Yeah.
And as long as you are consistent and keep going, I'm a firm believer hard work pays off. And I did something like that before. I said, every time I give a speech to like teenagers and I talk about, I was like, if it comes easy, oh, I think I did a post online. If it comes easy, it'll leave easy. If it
Yeah.
comes hard, it'll take hard effort to leave it. And that's always been my thing. Like when you're 16 and your parents hand you the keys to the car, it came easy. The moment you disrespect them, the first thing to go is that car. They take the keys back. But when you work and you buy your own car, who's taking it away from you?
Nobody.
Come hell or high water.
Nobody.
So work hard and consistent and keep going. We talked about this the other day. It takes
Yeah, we
20 years
did.
to be an overnight success.
Yeah. Yeah. And I've been at this for 20 years. Queen of Shade is 5, but I've been at entertainment for 20 years. And Queen of Shade on New Year's Day, which is so ironic because that's a new year. She turned 6. New Year's Day,
Good for her.
actually New Year's Day. My grandmother was in the hospital having her gallbladder out on New Year's Eve, and
Wow.
5.5 years ago, and she named me. She said, "You need to be the Queen of Shade. Now go trademark that." Yeah, like yeah.
Good
So
for you.
yeah, I love how you said, if it comes easy, it'll leave easy. If it comes hard, it's gonna take a hard fight to get it to leave. And
Yeah,
you're right. Anyone with a business, you're right. Like I didn't get it all right at the first time.
who does?
5.5 years, I didn't make a single dime. I was giving, didn't make a single dime, and didn't know how to ask for money, didn't know how to ask for support. I didn't. And then you see this, and this is from I was 22 when I went to Paris and learned how to do this, so it looks polished and everybody's like, oh, he don't need no money. They're like, oh, he don't need no money. I'm like, yes, actually, I need all the money. I need all.
You never not need money.
Right. So it's just an amazing thing. If you had to give 3 words that inspire you, what would they be?
Consistency is always one. Just words, not phrases or sentences.
You could do whatever.
Okay. Consistency. I have a coffee mug that says you have the same amount of hours in the day as Beyonce, and it kind of depresses me.
Oh, don't say that.
Like, well, what am I doing with my life? So may the power of Beyonce compel you. So
Right?
The
power of Beyonce compel you. The power of
consistency. Just hard work, And, and also you got to be passionate about it. Because I remember my son always would say, my youngest one, he's like, well, I want to do this because it'll make me money. I want to become this in life because this will make me money. And I said, son, I took a business mentoring kids in foster care that normally people volunteer at. And I have learned to turn this into a successful company where I have workers in multiple counties that work for me. If I was so focused only on money, I would have never made a dime.
Exactly.
Because there's no money in this field. These are all volunteers.
Exactly.
But my workers are actual workers. I pay them.
Yeah.
It's sometimes you got to find that passion and run with it.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you so much, Joe, for this amazing conversation. I can't wait. I'm literally gonna, once it ends, I'm gonna put it up. It's gonna be out. I'm gonna send you your copy. You do whatever you want with it. Like, this was.
Can we do our next one, like meeting together, and we could do it at a restaurant?
Right. You know, sit down.
Though, right? But I'll drink.
Yeah, right. I don't drink. Yeah, gotta keep the boys. Gotta keep the boys.
Shirley Temple for the lady, but I will have all the vodka.
Yes, right. Thank you so much for
inviting
on.
me.
Ladies and gentlemen, you have heard the mentoring stylings of Mr. Joe Adorno, and we have enjoyed him. So we have to do, we have to do it again. You have to, because there's so much wealth of information and knowledge there. And you're my friend, so I want to utilize it. I'm like, I want to utilize it because I want to hear more.
Thank you.
Right. So yeah, I'm gonna conclude it. So say bye to everybody.
Bye, everybody. Thank you for listening. Don't forget to follow.
Right. Oh, I almost forgot. Tell everyone where they can find you on social media.
We can find, I have that many followers. I'm still kind of new to it, but
It'll grow.
The Joe Adorno at TikTok or on Instagram. I utilize Instagram more for more serious stuff.
Okay, the Joe Adorno. Yes, and I'm gonna put it down under the.
That's right.
It goes on YouTube and it goes on.
Oh, fun YouTube.
Yeah.
Hey, the tube.
Yeah. Bye. Say bye.
Bye. Have a great day. See ya.
You too.